Hello. Right. Tonight we're looking at Sarah Everard, who was viciously kidnapped, raped, and murdered by Wayne Couzens. I will get the info for you. Hold on. Just stand with me. Right. Now, I'm getting straight into it tonight because I've been out today and I'm really tired. I got back about sorry. Well, I've had my grandson all weekend, and we went out today at 4:30, got back about 7:15, and I'm absolutely wiped out. So, this is the wrong about Sarah Everard. Right, Met Police Officer Wayne Couzens has been sentenced to a whole life term for the murder of Sarah Everard in the case that sparked national outrage and calls for more action to tackle violence against women. Yeah, this is by someone we are brought up to trust. You need help, you go to these people. You go to the police. Cousins admitted the kidnap and murder of the 33-year-old marketing executive when he appeared in court several months ago. Now, this was when 2021. But it was only during his sentence that the full details of his crimes emerged. Yeah. I got the report done on him and how the failings of the police force not doing their checks. I've got that report and I will go through little bits of it in a bit. Miss Everard was walking home from a friend's house in Clapham, South London, at about 21:30 BST, British Standard Time, on March the 3rd, when she was abducted. Couzens' choice of victim was random, but the attack was planned. In his sentencing remarks, Lord Justice Fulford said there had been significant planning and premeditation by Couzens. The police officer had long planned to carry out a violent essay on a yet-to-be selected victim, who he intended to coerce into his custody, noted the judge. Yeah, apparently he stopped her, he pulled up in an unmarked police car, showed her his badge, and used some sort of thing that she'd broken the COVID rules or something like that. And she'd have to go to the police station. And that's how she got in the car. Something like that. Couzens spent at least a month travelling to London from Deal, Kent, where he lived, to research how best to carry out his crimes. Several days before the attack, he booked a hire car, which he would use for the abduction, as well as a roll of self-adhesive film advertised as a carpet protector on Amazon. After finishing a 12-hour shift at the US Embassy that morning, Couzens, a parliamentary and diplomatic protection officer, which he should never have been, went out hunting for a lone young woman to kidnap and the prosecution said. That's a very blurry picture from CCTV from somewhere. But with CCTV, sometimes, depending on the camera, the more you zoom in, the blurrier it gets. So you can see Sarah standing there, and obviously that's Wayne Couzens. The court heard how Couzens used the knowledge he had gained from working on COVID patrols in January and in his Metropolitan Police issue warrant card to trick his victim under the guise of a fake arrest for breaching coronavirus guidelines. Now, bear in mind, we was in 2021. We was coming out of lockdown. Slowly, but we were coming out of it. The 48-year-old, who had been a police officer since 2002, handcuffed her before bundling her into a car and driving away. Makes you sick to your stomach. The abduction was witnessed by a couple travelling past in a car, but they believed they'd seen an undercover police officer carrying out a legitimate arrest, so did not intervene. The whole kidnapping took less than 5 minutes. Right, this is Sarah Everard's last known movements. Sarah leaves her friend's house at 21 under Gareth. There. Sarah is spotted by a passerby at 21:15 here. Took a long way to walk there, long time to walk there, but it took her 15 minutes. That was when she was obviously talking to Wayne Couzens. Couzens handcuffs and abducts Sarah. Oh, there, okay. Couzens drives to Dover. Couzens then drove to Dover in Kent, where he transferred Miss Everard to his own car before travelling to a remote rural area nearby. It was there that he hard and raped his victim, strangling her with his police belt. By 02:31, Couzens had left the scene and was spotted at a service station buying drinks. Cool as a daisy. Nothing here, nothing to see here, carry on. You know what I mean? Sick file piece of shit he is. The next day, as the search for... No, he visited the site where Mrs. Everett's body was dumped twice, leaving just before dawn. The next day, as the search for her escalated, Couzens brought petrol, which he used to burn her body inside a fridge. He burned her body. He abducted her, hard her, unalived her, put her in a fridge, then went back and burned her body. He also purchased 2 green rubber bags, which he used to dump the remains in a pond near an area of woodland he owned in Hootswood, Ashford. So then he puts her burnt body into sacks, green rubber bags. A week after she disappeared, Mrs. Everett's body was found in a woodland stream, just meters from land owned by Couzens. Meanwhile, Couzens returned to normal life, carrying out mundane activities like calling a vet about his dog. Days later, he even took his wife and 2 children on a trip to the woods where he had burnt his victim's body. He took his wife and children to that wooded area where he had burnt her body. How sick is that? However, on March the 8th, the day he was due to vote, he reported in sick. The following day, he was arrested at his home in Deal. In a brief police interview, he told a false story about being threatened by an Eastern European gang, claiming that they had demanded he deliver another girl after he had underpaid a prostitute for a few weeks before. He then claimed he kidnapped Miss Everard, drove her out of London, and handed her over to three men in a van in a lay-by in Kent, while she was alive and uninjured. But after Miss Everard's body was discovered in a pond just 130 metres from land owned by Couzens, he was charged. Too right. I believe I've got the full video. Hold on. I've got the full video of that, I believe. Should be on my YouTube account. And we will watch that. And it's... Oh, okay. Alright. Okay. Sorry, I clicked the wrong one then. Alright, where is he? Here it is. I've got it. Don't worry, I've got that video. So we will be listening and looking at that video. That bit there was only 1 minute 39 seconds. Couzens has since been sacked by the Met. Oh, Ray! He shouldn't have been employed by the Met. First off, when you listen to this report, if you want the report, I can put it in my. Hopefully, I can get on my Discord. If not, I can put it on my X account. Right, the independent officer for police conduct is also investigating alleged failure by Kent Police to investigate a flashing incident linked to Couzens in 20. There's lots of incidents involving flashing and everything. Lots of incidents like that. And they wasn't acted on. Even though some were reported at the time, they were not acted on. Couzens transferred to Met in 2018 from the Civil Nuclear Constabulary, where he had worked since 2011. 2 years later, he began work for the Parliamentary and Diplomatic Protection Command as an authorised firearms officer at a diplomatic premises around central London. In July, appearing by video link from Belmarsh High Security Jail, Couzens pleaded guilty to murder at the Old Bailey. On Wednesday, he appeared in court again, this time in person, for a 2-day sentencing hearing. There he faced Mrs. Everard's father, mother, and sister, and we've got what they wrote, and we'll be reading them. There he faced Mrs. Everard's mother, father, and sister, who described to the court the torment of losing a loved one in such a horrendous circumstance. Her father, Jeremy, demanded that Couzens looked at him as he told the murderer he could never forgive him for taking away his daughter. Look at him. Albie, you see these eyes? Look at these eyes, love mate. Look at them. Her mother, Susan, said she was tormented at the thought of what her precious little girl had endured. Yeah. I go through the sequence of events. I wonder when she realised she was in mortal danger, she told the court. Burning the body was a final insult. It meant we could never see her sweet face and never say goodbye. Exactly. Our lives will never be the same. We should be a family of 5, but now we are a family of 4. Her death leaves a yawning chasm in our lives and cannot be filled. Because people like him piece of ish like him think they can come along and do whatever they want. Doing the power. They're using the power of, oh, I'm in the police force. I'm in this. I carry guns. I work for whatever. You know what I mean? We don't care. It should never have been in there. Right. So now I'm going to play where they went to his home. Just listen to what this squirming, vile piece of ish. And do you know, he even, I think it was 2 years later, went back to appeal his sentence. Really? Right, so just listen to what this piece of ish has to say.
We're here to talk to you about Sarah. No, Sarah. I'll show you some pictures of her on the day. Okay. Sarah went missing on Wednesday, and her parents, obviously, and her family are really worried about her now. The inquiry that's been conducted so far has led us to come and speak to you about it, and to see what we know about Sarah. Okay. So, would you like to? Do you know where Sarah is? No. Right. Do you know anything about what happened to her?
I know that she went missing up in London somewhere. About a week ago or so. Just from what I've got on the news.
Okay. Have you ever personally met her?
No, not personally. No.
Have you had any interactions with her at all?
Why would I have personal interactions with her?
Well, it's very difficult because I can't go into a lot of the evidence because obviously that's not part of what an urgent interview is. Okay, this interview is just about trying to find her. Sure. She's been missing for a while now.
I'm sat in handcuffs and asking me what I know her, so you must have something to say that I know her.
Well, as I said, you've been arrested on suspicion of kidnap, and we believe that you've been involved in her disappearance and taking her away from her family.
Okay.
So we are trying to find her. Obviously, everybody is very worried about her. She's got, parents. She's got, she's siblings. She's got a girlfriend. There's a lot of people that care about her.
Sure.
If you've seen on the news, there are people that reach out about her.
Sure.
They're looking for her every day, and she's missing. And our job, our primary job here, is to find her and to try and find her safe and well.
Okay.
Now we believe that you know something about.
Can you imagine what's going through his head? He's sitting there in his living room. His wife is maybe in the same room, or she could be in the kitchen making them all cups of tea. Everything fine. Have a cup of tea. Everything will be fine. Right? And he's sitting there and he's listening to these two police officers talking about the woman who's missing. Because at the time, they didn't know where she was. Right? So he's sitting there listening, and I'm thinking, what must be going through your head? Are you trying to concoct, while I'm talking, are you trying to concoct a story? You know what I mean? They know. Okay, right, what am I going to say here? Sort of thing.
She is, and that's why we're here, to look for her and to try and find her. And that's why we're talking to you now, to try and get you to have a good think about it and tell us anything you can about whether or not it's fine.
Okay. Well, I am
Here it comes.
Financial, and I've been lent on by I don't know who they are. They're a group, a gang, whatever.
Now, in the report by Elise Angiolini done, it says that if you work in the police and you are in debt, deep debt, so you've got a lot of money owing, you're using every bank card you can think of, you're taking out payday loans, whatever. It's these police officers that need to be looked at and watched, because those police officers are the ones that can be turned, whose heads could be turned. Well, you know what, if you can do this favour for us, we can clear your debt, yeah? But they knew nothing about his debt, because he covered it over.
And they told me, right, I need to go and pick up girls and give them to them. So I said, what's happening? And it then came through that they're going to harm my family, take them away, and they'll use them instead. But at that point, I had no option to try and find somebody. So,
at that point, mate, if that was true, you had every option. You could have gone to your commanding officer. You know what I mean? You could have done anything. If that had been the story, if that had been true, you could have gone to your commanding officer. No one would have suspected you walking into a police station, because you're a police officer. So of course you can walk into a police station. It's where you work. But that isn't true, is it? As we now know.
I don't. There's a couple of names. I was told a place to take her. That's it. That is all I know. To this group of people.
Tell me about them. I need to find them. Tell me everything you know that I
Okay.
think that you'll help me.
There was a white Sprinter van. They was between sort of Len and Maidstone area that I dropped her off. I still don't know. I don't know. They just I just parked my car up, and then the van come up behind me, flashed me. They all jumped out, and then they took this girl. They said you've done good, and I don't know whether my family's going to be alright still. But they threatened to take my family away from me. So at that point, I'm doing what I can to protect my family. That's it. So all I know is that it was a roundabout. We could drive there now. I could show you. But roughly, I don't know Lenham Maidstone area at all.
If you did it on Google, if you did it on Google Maps, like Google Earth, if you drove it, would
Right.
you be able to do it?
I drove from Ashford to Maidstone.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
There's a roundabout that breaks up, I guess. So this is the first big roundabout you come to. You would carry straight over to Maidstone, but instead I went round that roundabout and back up another road. And at that point, I was flashed and pulled over. You guys got out, opened my door, opened that door, pushed me out against the front of the car, took the girl.
No, so he added something else there. He said, first of all, he said he pulled over. Then a van pulled up behind him, flashed him. The men got out of the van. They come and got the woman out the back of the car and turned round to him and said, you done good. Now he's saying he got flashed, so he pulled over. The men got out the car, opened his door, opened the back door, pulled him out the car, and took the girl out the car and drove off. So that's a little bit more of a story. Before he said he had pulled over, he'd stopped when the van pulled up behind him and flashed him. Now he's saying he was driving along, the van drove up behind him, flashed him, he's pulled over.
Drove off. That's it. They said we'll be in touch. So I'm here. I'm off work with stress because I'm here to protect my family. I want to be here 24/7 for my family. They come from my family. I've got nothing myself. I've got no choice.
And what about her family? What about that young girl's family? What about her boyfriend? Her mother, her father, her sister?
Choice.
I'll go back through the route with you in a minute, all right? But how do they contact you? How did you contact them?
I tried to take over on one of their call girls and rip her off. So she's told them, and they've got me. So
How do they? No, but honest, how do they contact you? How is it they've been in contact with you to make these threats?
they just tell me be here. So Hotel Burston down in Folkestone, got to be here. Okay, so I turned up. I've got no mobile number, and they have got my mobile number. They're obviously outside watching, following. I just honestly.
How are they telling you to be there? How is it they're giving those directions?
Yeah, they'll come outside. So they'll be outside here.
Yeah.
And then they'll say, right, you're going to be in Folkestone at this time, or you're going to be in Ashford at this time. That's it. There's no links, no telephone numbers.
So the way he's talking, like they will come up to him outside his house, say you'll be in Folkestone here or Ashton. Is he trying to say he's done it before? You know what I mean? Is he trying to say he's got a young girl for this group of men before?
I'm completely on my own, but at the same time being threatened. It had Romanian plates on the van, white, like Mercedes Sprinter type van.
His story seemed to change and everything. I bet those police officers, that one woman was writing it all down, right? And I bet they're thinking, really? Really? Because that's what I'd be thinking. So they caught you by trying to dwindle a woman, right? And they said you owe them money, so by doing that, you've got out of debt by getting this young girl for them. And then you've just mentioned the fact that, oh, they just come up to me outside my house and they say, you'll be here at Folkestone, or you'll be here. So how many times if this had been true, how many times had he done it before? That's a question I would have pulled up on him. I would have said, so you've just mentioned that they talk to you outside the house, they'd be here or be there. How many times have you done this before for them? Perhaps that was one of the questions they did in the interview back at the police station. So it's just sick. Right? Now, hold on, I'm going to finally I think there's a video. Yeah. I've got several. Right? I've got this one. This one is Sarah Everard's killer, Wayne Couzens' shocking past. Let's listen to this one.
The evidence seen by the inquiry has shown that failures in recruitment and vetting, failures in investigations into allegations of indecent exposure meant opportunities to disrupt Couzens' offending and bring his policing career to a halt were missed. It is clear that Couzens carefully managed the impression he gave people of himself. This included the way he manipulated information on application forms and his troubled finances. It also included the way he shared his callous views towards women with only a very small group of like-minded people on a social media group. This all enabled him to target vulnerable women while operating in plain sight as an apparently unremarkable officer. However, the fact remains that 3 separate police forces allowed him the privilege of being a police officer when they could and should have stopped him. Wayne Couzens is a predatory sex offender and murderer. Evidence of his alleged offending, his preference for extreme and violent pornography, and his unmanaged debts date back nearly 20 years prior to Sarah's murder. The report explores this in detail, but I will draw your attention to some of the major red flags and missed opportunities to halt Wayne Couzens' career and bring him to justice. The inquiry has seen evidence that Couzens allegedly committed a very serious sexual assault against a child, barely in her teens, before his policing career even started. Problems of money also predated his career with the police. Couzens had substantial unsecured debt by the time he was arrested for Sarah's murder. At the same time, the Metropolitan Police Service were taking action to recover up to £15,000 that had been paid to him in error, and a year-long mortgage holiday was about to expire that month. These pressures undoubtedly affected his ability to serve as an authorised firearms officer at that time. I've seen evidence of Couzens' diverse and deviant sexual interests and understand these to be potential drivers for his offending. It is alleged that on a number of occasions, Couzens tried to show friends and colleagues pornography, including some of a violent and extreme nature. It is further alleged that on at least 2 occasions, he shared unsolicited photographs of his penis with young women, and that he paid female online retailers to masturbate into clothes and send them to him. Since his conviction for Sarah's abduction, rape and murder, Couzens has been convicted of further crimes of indecent exposure, one of which he had already been linked to while a serving police officer. Some further allegations were charged but remain on file. Couzens is also alleged to have possessed indecent images of children. He has not been convicted of this. Crucially, the report shows how police recruitment and vetting failed to spot red flags about Couzens' unsuitability. Red flags were repeatedly ignored, meaning he was granted the privilege of serving in 3 separate police forces, including as an authorised firearms officer, despite, for example, his history of excessive spending and personal debt. Vetting processes also missed other information, including linking Couzens to an incident of indecent. In 2015, a member of the Kent Police, having driving a car while indecently exposing himself, gave the police the make, model, colour and registration number of the car, information that was confirmed by automatic number plate recognition cameras operating. Almost no time, checks by the police identified Couzens as the registered keeper of the car. However, despite having his home address and knowing that he was the only male insured to drive the car, Kent Police closed the case no further. They did so without making any attempt to speak to a further witness.
Faulty as well. All these allegations that went in before the unaliving of Sarah Everard. No, I think there's several. He got charged for extra 3 other charges out of all the charges that he did have against him. They only charged him for 3, so he got an extra 18 months added on. Whoopie-doo. You know what I mean? He's in there for a whole life sentence. It's not coming out, so 18 months is nothing. And it annoys me because they say, well, we haven't got enough evidence to prove it was him. And to be honest with you, he's going down for this, the unaliving of Sarah Everard. No, I don't care. If he's raped or assaulted someone or SA'd someone, I don't care how minor it is. That person, that victim, needs justice. And a lot of them didn't get the justice they deserved because they thought, well, he's going down for life anyway, so why bother prosecuting him for these? It's all wrong.
Or to Couzens himself. This was a grave error and a very obvious red flag. By failing to properly investigate the allegation, Kent Police missed a valuable opportunity to disrupt or even prevent Couzens' future offending and to bring into question his position as an authorised firearms officer with the CNC. Victims reported allegations of indecent exposure to the police on 4 occasions before Couzens' arrest. The 2 allegations reported to Kent were inadequately investigated. In addition to the 2015 allegation, Kent pleaded to an allegation of indecent exposure directed at a lone cyclist in a narrow country lane in 2020. With limited investigation, the case was closed. Had the investigation been more thorough, it is possible that Couzens might have been identified as an alleged sex offender and his offending and policing career disrupted. Just days before he abducted Sarah Everard, Couzens was reported for exposing himself at a drive-through. They also fell below the standards any victim of crime should expect. For example, available evidence such as CCTV was not collected or considered. He was only interviewed and charged for those further offences of indecent exposure after his conviction for Sarah's murder. He was convicted for 2 of the reported crimes at the drive-through and the crime where he was reported for masturbating towards a lone cyclist on a narrow country lane. The inquiry is aware of 5 other alleged incidents of sexual offending involving Couzens, which, for many understandable, were never reported to the police. Given the known underreporting of sexual offences, I believe there may be even more victims of Couzens offending. Data tells us that women do not always report being victims of indecent exposure. Evidence of the inquiry showed that policing does not always respond to it as it should. I make recommendations about improving the ways that police respond to those who report such crimes. I also recommend an immediate review be undertaken of indecent exposure, facts and circumstances of the case of Wayne Couzens and the cultures in which he worked. Police and police culture is something that will be examined during part 2 of this inquiry. Good police officers work alongside those who abuse their powers. Some, like Couzens, manipulate their image at work to avoid drawing attention to themselves. Outside of work, he described himself as an undercover officer. He was not. Although Wayne Couzens was not wholly a product of his working environments, those environments did nothing to discourage his misogynistic view of women and meant that providing he presented himself as professional, his deviant behaviour outside of work could flourish. Policing leaders need to radically transform their approach to police culture if future offenders like Couzens are to be denied opportunities to abuse police powers for sexual purpose.
All right. So that was just a small section of an interview she did. I was going to show the full version, but it's only another minute or so longer. It's not much longer. But he should never have been in the police force. Full stop. Right? His checks on him was never done properly. So because of that, he slipped through the loophole. He said that, he'd have been something like, apparently it says in the report that he told them about this one debt of his, but he'd been making payments, arranged to be made payments on it, blah, and all this crap. So they took it no further. They didn't check to see if he had made arrangements to have it been paid or anything. It was just a sick piece of work, right? Now, we've got. We've got this one by Sky News. It's how they caught Sarah Everard.
Sarah.
Right? This is how they caught the killer. Hold on. Oh, come on. Thank you. So, let's have a listen to this, shall we?
Had been out with a friend and gone to their house, the other side of Clapham Common, and left there about 9 o'clock that night. And then as she walks the 2.5 miles home for 14 minutes, we understand that she's on her phone to her boyfriend. And then once that phone call finishes, she's got headphones and she's just walking home towards her house in Tulse Hill.
And was this the most direct route for her?
Yes, she's got to come across Clapham Common. It would have been dark that night. So perhaps sticking to the roads or cutting it was quicker. And then she gets into the main Cavendish Road, into Poinders Road, which is the most direct route and well lit for her.
Yeah, this is an arterial road, isn't it? The South Circular. If I was a single woman walking at night in the dark, I'd probably choose this kind of route that might offer some kind of safety.
I think you would, and I think even as a man, you'd think it's the most safest route to come home. It's well lit with street lighting and plenty of properties around. So yes, I think that's the route that she would have taken in every time she went to see her friend.
Do you have any idea why she wouldn't have taken a cab home?
Well, the investigation identified, as we can hear, that Sarah was very active, just walking home at night. And you've got to think at the time, on March the 3rd, when she went missing, there were quite severe COVID restrictions in place in London, and not many people were out and about. In fact, you weren't really supposed to be out, and you weren't supposed to be visiting friends either. So that was something that she just thought maybe getting some fresh air. So, but no one knows apart from Sarah.
Yes, I mean, at that time in lockdown, we all were allowed to walk. And maybe she saw this as her exercise.
You know that. Well, how many times? This can be particularly a problem for her.
How far was she from her home at this point?
So when she leaves her friend's house, she's about 2.5 miles from her own home. From here, probably about another mile or so to go outside Poinders Court.
When she was approaching this part of the road, what was Wayne Couzens doing?
Well, we know before she approached here, the investigation identified that She had been seen walking in this direction. And then what you would do is try and find out how far she's gone after that point. And the investigation team at that time identified that she hadn't gone any further than essentially where we are now. And it took a few days for some bus CCTV to come in to actually find and see Sarah literally just here with Wayne Couzens and the car that he had hired. Now,
until you got that kind of evidence, she had simply vanished.
Yes. I mean, it was a missing persons inquiry for a couple of days. And because of the nature of Sarah and the completely out of character for her, the Metropolitan Police's decision to bring in their homicide teams, specialist crime teams, and all the assets they have with them to assist the missing persons inquiry. But it soon became apparent out of character, and there was a real concern for Sarah.
So what was Wayne Couzens up to that night?
So Wayne Couzens had no reason to be here at all. And I think that was the thing that everybody identified quite quickly. He was a serving police officer at the time, hadn't been in the Metropolitan Police very long, and
he was off duty,
lives in Kent, in Dover, had no reason to be here. This is probably one of those routes that he would have taken to go to work from out in Dover into central London where he was based.
So he knew the area?
He knows the area, he knows the roads, but had no reason whatsoever. And it's clear, isn't it, that the only reason he was here was to abduct a woman.
So he was parked up. Can you just describe what was happening with him and his vehicle?
So when he was originally first seen was when he was standing next to Sarah, just further up the road here. The hire car, the white Vauxhall Astra that he hired, was parked on the pavement, and the hazard lights were going. And bus CCTV and some other dash cam footage showed that the doors were open and he was standing with Sarah at that time.
And the hazard lights were on?
Hazard lights are on.
And can you deduce from the footage whether they were talking?
Yes, you can see that the two are engaged in conversation, standing similar to where we are now in conversation next to the car with the doors open.
And he's not in uniform?
Well, it's difficult to see from the footage, but I think what's clear from the investigation that they identified that he had used his police authority, whether his police badge, whether part uniform, whatever he was doing to effect that stop on Sarah and to make her stop.
What do you know about what happened next?
Well, from a witness, I mean, we've heard that now, that a witness saw Sarah being handcuffed. Now, for somebody to get into the back of a car with essentially a stranger, albeit he might have a police badge, without doing anything wrong, it would take some like Sarah probably not to get into that car. She got into the back of the car. The only reason that I think of, experience put her under arrest, and one of the witnesses that has come forward in that inquiry that they found said that they saw Sarah being handcuffed.
And is there any evidence that she put up a fight, any kind of struggle?
Not certainly that they've seen at that point, no. Essentially, Sarah's not the sort of person that if a police officer arrested her,
No, because she's under the belief that she's violated one of the COVID-19 restriction rules, right? And so she's thinking, you know what, take me to the station, we'll clear this up. Yeah. Because that's what I'd be thinking of, thinking, you know what, take me to the police station, we'll clear this up. But now I would say to any young girl, or even lad, any young lad, any young guy, but more young girls, if a police officer comes up to you, stops you while you're walking along the road, and you're on your own, and they say, we need to take you down to the police station, so can we have your can we have your senior manager here, please? Anyone above him, can we have one of your senior officers here, please? If he goes, I am a senior officer, say, no, I want your commanding officer then. You know what I mean? Don't get in a car without some other officer being there.
she'd obviously be completely confused and quite alarmed and upset, like anybody would, but certainly not the type of person that would then fight a police officer to get away or anything like that. It's not the type of person she was. From all the inquiries made with their family and friends, the police investigation team identified that she was a strong-willed character, and it wouldn't have really had that effect on her. She knew what was going on that night. Unfortunately, she didn't know what was going on in that particular incident.
What do you think Couzens might have said to her to convince her that she was being rightfully arrested?
Well, I don't know. I mean, he could have made up a law. He could have said anything he wanted to get her into the car. I mean, he could have used COVID as a reason to get her into the back of the car and said, you're breaching COVID rules, and arrested her. Sarah wouldn't necessarily have known every single law, and he could have made one up to get her in the back of the car.
I mean, that has a ring of authenticity about it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And whatever it is, and whatever he said to her, he's used deceit and deception and to get her into the back of that car for the sole reason of, abducting her.
He was taking a huge chance doing what he did on a brightly lit arterial road with, dozens and dozens of homes around us. People, if they weren't out on the streets, were probably looking out of their windows. Why do you think he chose this part?
Well, I think then you have to go into what kind of person he is to take that chance. I mean, he hired the car that he used to abduct Sarah in his own name, with his own address and his own telephone number. So being out in a road like this really, it just shows that that's a kind of continuation of the kind of mindset that he is.
But he'd made certain preparations. It wasn't as though you don't think this was a spur of the moment thing for him?
I don't think so. And I don't think anybody who worked on that investigation and will think that this was nothing other than pre-planned, premeditated. This is part of him, what he wanted to do. He's hired a car. He's driven 70 odd miles to come into central London to abduct somebody. Whether his intention was then to rape them and kill them, he's admitted to that. He's admitted to all the facts that the police and the CPS have put in front of the court, that he abducted, raped and murdered Sarah. So I think that's what he set out to do that night, chilling as it is.
What do you think happened, or what do you know happened next?
Well, once Sarah's in the car, there's obviously that gap of what's being said or what actually happened. In terms of the route, he's driven out of London. The police investigation has used ANPR cameras, CCTV, his own telephone with his cell site information that's held on it, to put him all the way back into Dover. Obviously, Sarah, what's happened to Sarah in between London and Dover doesn't really bear thinking about.
I mean, he told a bizarre story when you arrested him, or just before you arrested him. Yeah,
when officers went into his house, he's come up with this really elaborate story that he was involved with some European sex traffickers or a prostitution gang, and that he had done something wrong and needed to replace a girl, and that's the reason why he was getting somebody off the street to give to this gang. That's the thing he said when the officers were standing next to him in his house.
I mean, it sounds crazy, but you couldn't ignore that, could you?
Police investigations can't ignore things like that. We've all been involved in the most bizarre of investigations where you think the story's not true, but it turns out to be true. So you have to, an investigation team that dealt with this investigation would have gone meticulously through CCTV footage from here to Dover to see if that car stopped, if he was just him, his idea that what he wanted to do when he left his Dover house to come here to abduct somebody, and Sarah was unfortunately his target that night.
How quickly did you identify Couzens?
Well, the investigation was waiting for CCTV footage. We didn't know if it would hold anything, but when buses move up and down roads, they have cameras at the front, so you wait for that footage to be down. It's not a quick thing. So in between that time, you try and identify any other CCTV cameras that might help. You would look at people that were seen on those cameras to see where they went. But obviously, the investigation team didn't see Sarah past this point. So there is something has happened here. And it could have been that she turned off and gone down a back alley or something like that. But that was, ruled out quite quickly. So it was the point that the CCTV camera from the bus identifies the car, and then with other CCTV, you can see the number plate. The number plate comes back to this car, a hire car from Dover, immediate inquiries into there, as you can imagine, as fast as possible, identify that Wayne Couzens has hired that car. And then the next stage is, who is Wayne Couzens himself?
And you quickly found the answer.
Yeah, and it was, it's one of those things, and I know the SIO and all that team and everybody that worked on it and all the different people that came together when they found out that it was a police officer. It's something that will stay with me, certainly before I left the Met, that will stay with me for the rest of my life. And I think it upset a lot of officers, as you can imagine.
And it's terrible publicity, isn't it? I mean, the perception of the public that a police officer could be responsible for this, this authority figure. I mean, you tell me in your words that how the public generally view cops. I think,
do you know what? Heartbreaking is what it was to start with, because, the policing is not an easy job, as we all know, and we get bashed up a lot by the media, and I think that when those officers realised that it was a police officer, some of those things that you have in common practice in your family lives come into play. When you tell your children, or you tell a friend or whatever, if you're in trouble, try and find a police officer. Well, what he did that day has set that back to such a.
Oh yeah, he set it back, right back to the 1600s. Because, as I've stated earlier, if a police officer now approaches a woman and they say, "We need you to come down to the police station," you'd say, "Can I have your senior officer here?" "I am a senior officer." "A commanding officer then." Or, "Can I have the station you work at?" So then you confirm, I'll confirm them just to confirm you are who you are. You know what I mean? Because there's no way a young girl or young woman is going to get in the back of a police car now with any police officer on their own. I wouldn't advise it for anyone. I don't care if you're peed out your head and sitting in the gutter and a police officer comes up to you. You do not get in that police car. You demand to see their senior commanding officer.
Distance behind us that we've, you try and recover and you try and say we're not like that. There are thousands of police officers working in this country who sent in messages of support to say to the family, we're not like that. That's not what we are about. And, that's a really important message, I think, to say that, yes, it's difficult to understand. Police officers, and I've now recently retired, but police officers do not view Wayne Couzens as a police officer. They view him as a murderer who happened to be a police officer, rather than the other way around, a police officer who is a murderer. And that's a really important thing. He doesn't hold the same values as a police officer. He doesn't have the same personality that we do. He's a very sick, a very dangerous individual who should never have been near a uniform.
Can you tell me a bit about, having identified him, there was still an awful lot of work to do, wasn't there? Because he wasn't initially admitting anything.
Yes, I mean, he did say those few things about the
European scenario.
Yeah,
okay,
but then moving on from that, when he's interviewed by the investigation team, he doesn't say anything, just says no comment. And he's never offered an explanation from that point to now. Even at conviction, never, even at sentencing, has never said anything about it. So there are still lots of unanswered questions about what happened. Where was Sarah murdered is one of those questions. It would be such a thing that the family would want to hear, to know the full story about what happened. And there will be some obviously horrendous details in it, but there's so many elements of this case which the police still don't know. where did it happen?
See, I heard about this case. I did. And that's when I said, "Well, no way am I getting in a police car no more on my own." Not that I ever did anyway. But if ever I was on my own and a police officer stopped me, I'd go, "Yep. Senior commanding officer, please." Right? And the fact that he burnt her body, he was trying to get rid of any evidence on her body that could lead back to him. But it also takes away the fact that the parents couldn't even say goodbye to her, couldn't even see her, couldn't have an open casket if they wanted to. You know what I mean? So that is the worst part about it. Let's listen to what the judge says. Just make sure you're seeing this. Yeah. Okay. So now we're going to listen to what the judge has to say in the sentencing. It is 7 minutes long, right? But what I'm going to do, I am going to speed it up a bit because it can drag on. Sometimes listening to a judge is like, real, oh God. So we're going to speed it up a little bit. Make the screen a bit bigger.
We are today handing down our written judgment in cases concerning the sensitive offence convicted of murder and one of manslaughter. Also, General refers to this as Angiolini. Concern should be specified by the court, and instead a whole life order made. The principles applicable to the imposition of whole life term are well established. It was no part of the Attorney General's case that those principles should be changed or the bar lowered for the imposition of a whole life order. In our judgment, we have summarized the applicable principles and deal with each of the individual cases. The first concerns Ian Stewart. In February 2022, he was convicted of the murder of his wife, Diane Stewart. He committed that murder in 2010. He had convicted of the murder of his then fiancée, Helen Bailey. On the 9th of February 2022, he was sentenced to imprisonment for life with a whole life order. Stewart seeks leave to appeal against sentence. The circumstances of his case do not fall within the terms of the statutory provision which provides that a whole life order should be the normal starting point, subject to possible adjustment for the individual facts. It is not one of those rare cases where nonetheless a whole life order should be imposed. Leave to appeal and substitute a minimum term of 30 years. The second concerns
Sorry about that. I got kicked off. But I'll put it back up for you now. I did stop it. As soon as I got kicked off, I stopped the video. So you haven't missed much. Because my internet's playing a potting.
while on police bail when the deaths of his children were under investigation, he murdered his then partner, Evie Adams. He
Oh, God, you're joking me. Hold on. Got to open it up again because for some reason there was no sound. Oh, God, no, I've got the wrong one. Right. Sorry about this, everyone. Hopefully we've got sound again.
We are today handing down our written judgment in cases and one of manslaughter. They concern both applications for leave to appeal against sentence and also references by the Attorney General or Solicitor General for leave to refer sentences as unduly lenient. The cases are concerned with life imprisonment for murder and the circumstances. It was no part of the Attorney General's case that those principles should be changed or the bar lowered for the imposition of a whole life order. In our judgment, we have summarized the applicable principles and deal with each of the individual cases. The first Stewart, February 2022, he was convicted of the murder of his wife, Diane Stewart. He committed that murder in 2010. He had been convicted in 2017 of the murder of his then fiancée, Helen Bailey. On the 9th of February 2022, he was sentenced to imprisonment for life with a whole life order. Stewart seeks leave to appeal against sentence. The circumstances of his case do not fall within the terms of the statutory provision which provides that a whole life order should be the normal starting point, subject to possible adjustment for the individual facts. It is not one of those rare cases where nonetheless a whole life order should be imposed. We grant leave to appeal and substitute a minimum term of 35 years. The second concerns Wayne Couzens, who pleaded guilty to kidnap and rape of Sarah Everard, and later he pleaded guilty to her murder. On the 30th of September 2021, he was sentenced to imprisonment for life for the murder with a whole life order. No separate penalty was imposed for the offences of kidnapping and rape. Couzens seeks leave to appeal against sentence. In his case, 30th of September 2020 for the offences of kidnapping and rape. Couzens seeks leave to appeal.
They didn't charge him separately for the kidnapping, and doing anything else. They just charged him with the murder. Now, in the USA, they would have him for the unaliving, for the kidnapping, and the rape. They'd have all that. So, say life was 35 years. There's 35 years. Say abduction was 20 years minimum, right? And then R was 5 years. So there's an extra 25, 35, 40, 50, 35, 55, 60 years, right? But because they're going for a whole life order, which means he'll never get out, that's possibly why they didn't go for the offences of kidnapping and R.
Against sentence. In his case, we grant leave to appeal against sentence but dismiss the appeal. Although the circumstances of his case do not fall within the terms of the statutory provision, which provides that a whole life order should be the normal starting point, the individual facts are such that the judge was entitled, exceptionally, to impose a whole life order. The third concerns Jordan Monaghan, who was convicted on the 17th.
Right, that isn't the one I wanted to use. right? Perhaps it was. Perhaps it was. Right? So he appealed. He can't appeal for a whole on his whole. He can, but he won't get it. And he didn't. He did appeal and he didn't get it. Right? Because if he had appealed and he'd got it, then they could have gone, well, hold on. We haven't charged him with the kidnapping or the rape. Let's add that on now. You know what I mean? If they'd have added all that on in the first place, he may have had appeal to leave to an appeal. But it's sickening. Now, I have got a document here. My downloads. Yeah. And I want to go to first. It's at the end. Oh no, guys, gotta find it for you. Okay, nothing. Now this is what Sarah Everard's mother said. Right? There's the daughter again. Oh, let's take that off. Let's change this to that. Right? This is what the mother said. And it broke me. This broke me when I read these. It really broke me. She says, Sarah is gone and I am broken-hearted. She was my precious little girl, our youngest child. The feeling of loss is so great it is visceral. And with the sorrow comes waves of panic at not being able to see her again. I can never talk to her, never hold her again, and never more be part of her life. We have kept her good dressing gown. It still smells of her, and I hug that instead of her. Sarah died in horrendous circumstances. I am tormented at the thought of what she endured. I played it out in my mind. I go through the terrible sequence of events. I wonder when she realised she was in mortal danger. I wonder what her murderer said to her when he strangled her. For how long was she conscious, knowing she would die? It is torture to think of it. Sarah was handcuffed, unable to defend herself, and there was no one to rescue her. She spent her last days on this earth with the very most worst humanity. She lost her life because Wayne Couzens wanted to satisfy his perverted desires. It is not a ridiculous reason. It is nonsensical. How could you value a human life so cheaply? I cannot comprehend it. I'm incandescent with rage at the thought of it. He treated my daughter as if she was nothing and disposed of her as if she was rubbish. If Sarah died because of an illness, she would have been cared for. We could have looked after her and been with her. If she had died because of an accident, people would have tried to help. There would have been kindness, but there was no comfort to be had. There's no consoling the thought in the way Sarah died. In her last hours, she was faced with brutality and terror, alone with someone intent on doing her harm. The thought of it is unbearable. I'm haunted by the horror of it. When Sarah went missing, we suffered days of agony, not knowing where she was or what had happened to her. Then when Sarah's burnt remains were found, we spent 2 terrible days waiting for tests to show how she died, fearing she had been set alight before she had died. The thought was appalling. Burning her body was the final insult. It meant we could never see her sweet face and never say goodbye. Our lives will never be the same. We should be a family of 5, but now we are a family of 4. Her death leaves a yawning chasm in our lives that cannot be filled. I yearn for her. I remember all the lovely things about her. She was caring, she was funny. She was clever, but she was good at practical things too. She was a beautiful dancer. She was a wonderful daughter. She was always there to listen, to advise, or simply to share the minute of the day. And she was also a strongly principled young woman who knew right from wrong and who lived by those values. She was a good person. She had purpose to her life. My outlook on life has changed since Sarah died. I am more cautious, or I worry more about my other children. I crave the familiarity and security of home. The wider world has lost its appeal. It's too painful to contemplate a future without Sarah, so I'll just live in the here and now. I think of Sarah all the time, but the mornings and evenings are particularly painful. In the morning, I wake up to the awful reality that Sarah is gone. In the evenings, at the time she's abducted, I let out a silent scream. Don't get in the car, Sarah. Don't believe him. Run. I am repulsed by the thought of Wayne Couzens and what he did to Sarah. I am outraged that he masqueraded as a policeman in order to get what he wanted. Sarah wanted to get married and have children. Now all that has gone. He took her life and stole her future. We will never have the joy of sharing that future with her. Each day dawns, and I think Sarah should be here, leading her life and embracing new experiences. She had so many years ahead of her. I don't know how anyone could be so cruel as to take my daughter's life. What I do know is that Sarah will never be forgotten and is remembered with boundless love. I cling on to the memories of Sarah. I hold them tight to keep them safe. Sorry. The other night, I dreamt that Sarah appeared at home. In my dream, I held her and could feel her physically. Jeremy was there. We was comforting her, saying, "It's all right, Sarah, it's all right. I will give anything to hold her once more. I hope I dream. I hope I dream that dream again." And this is her father. Sorry about that. I've read that several times as well. And it gets me every time. This is what her father said. "The impact of what you have done will never end. The horrendous murder of my daughter Sarah is in my mind all the time and will be for the rest of my life. A father wants to look after his children, fix everything, and you have deliberately and premeditatedly stopped my ability to do that." Sarah was handcuffed and unable to defend herself. This preys on my mind all the time. There is no redemption for what you have done, for taking Sarah away from us. You burnt our daughter's body, you further tortured us, so that you could not see her again. We could not see her again. We did not know whether you had burnt her alive or dead. You stopped to see Sarah for one last time, and stopped me from giving my daughter one last kiss goodbye. Trigger warning, trigger warning. Her body fell apart when she was moved. Her brain and neck bones were removed for months by the pathologist, and her body was difficult to preserve, so we had to use the service of a specialist embalmer to enable a dignified burial. All my family wanted Sarah back with us. No punishment that you receive will ever compare to the pain and torture that you have inflicted on us. You murdered our daughter and forever broke the hearts of her mother, father, brother, sister, family, and her friends. Sarah had so much to look forward to, and because of you, this is now gone forever. She was saving to buy a house and looking forward to marriage and children. We was looking forward to having grandchildren. We loved being part of Sarah's world and expected to have a full and happy life. The closest we can get to her now is to visit her grave every day. Oh, God. Sorry. This is her sister. This is what her sister said. You treated Sarah as if she was nothing. Place more emphasis on satisfying your sick, disgusting perversion than on her life. You disposed of my sister's body as if it was rubbish. Hold on, everyone. So I've just rubbed my eye, and I had makeup on, and it's stinging my eye now. Oh, God. She meant we couldn't even see her. She was so badly burned. Her brain was removed from a school to check for trauma and cause of death. I still don't know if they can put her brain back in her head or whether it is lying next to her body in her coffin. Shards of her kneecap were returned to us to be placed with her body. Shards that you knocked when moving her burnt body from the fridge you used to hide her and conceal the fire. We are still missing her hyoid bone from her throat, which is being checked to see the force you used to strangle her, to determine how long she may have survived. We know it was broken. Her body still had the necklace and one earring in her ear. The other had fallen out from the ear because it had been burnt off. You hear from the police that it takes around 2 minutes to strangle someone and around 8 to 10 seconds for them to lose consciousness. At first, there was a sense of relief at hearing that your sister might only been aware of what was happening for 8 to 10 seconds. But have you put your hands around your neck and tried pushing hard 8 to 10 seconds? Now seems a long time. Yeah, it does. You used your warrant card to trick my sister into your car. She sat in a car handcuffed for hours. What could she have thought she had done wrong? What lies did you tell her? When did she realise she wasn't going to survive the night? I'm constantly replaying in my head. Did you R her, then kill her? Did you kill her while R'ing her? You get small nuggets of information, and that thought process starts again. Your semen and blood were found in your car, so this suggests you R'd her in the car. You find out you may have used a belt to strangle her. New horrendous images forming. You stopped to get a Lucasade and water at a petrol station. Was she still alive at this point? Bound in your car. I am horrified by the ability to flip between what you did and normal everyday actions. Your casual demeanour on CCTV was very upsetting and shocking to see. We had to go to the flat and pack up Sarah's whole life. Washing left, hanging up, half-sewn outfits, deliveries waiting to be returned, packages waiting at the door ready to be opened, all signs of a life waiting to be lived, chores to be done, ready for her to return and continue when she got home. But she never got home because a predator, you, was on the loose, prowling the streets for hours looking for his prey. You can't comprehend what you are being told when it is happening because it is so horrific, some sort of sick, waking nightmare. You can't imagine anyone could do such a thing. You are waiting to hear anything from the police. Every bit you get is different. You hear a body was found, then you find out she has been burned, so badly burnt you can't see her again to say goodbye. The first thought you have in your head after despair and shock is, was she dead before you burnt her? Imagine that, even having to be thought. You find out no soot was found in her lungs, which suggests she was burnt after you murdered her. Imagine being relieved to hear your sister was dead before she was burnt. I replay it continuously round in my head, what you may have said to her, what she may have said back, when she realised she was in grave danger and was not going to survive. Hoping my sister was unconscious and drugged, but we know that was not the case. No drugs found in her body, no trauma to the head. burst blood vessels in her brain from your strangulation, which meant she was conscious when you were doing those unfathomable things to her. My only hope is that she was in a state of shock and that she wasn't aware of the disgusting things being done to her by a monster. When you forced yourself upon and held her, when you put your hands around her neck and strangled her. It disgusts me that you was the last person to touch her perfect body and violate her in the way you did. The last person to see her alive and speak to her. How scared she must have been. The last moment of her life, not with loved ones, but frightening and fighting for her life. I hate to think of her being so scared and alone, and that in the last moment she had no one with her, no kindness. I hate that I wasn't there to save her. To stop you. I find it hard to believe she's not living her own life, and I'm sick at the thought that her last moments on this earth alive were so horrific. How dare you take her from me? Take away her hopes and dreams, her life, children that was never born, generations that will never exist. Her future no longer exists. The future I was supposed to live with my sister no longer exists. You've ruined so many lives. Sarah is the very best person with so many people who love and cherish her. I want to speak to her and hug her and hear her laugh and go out for dinners and drinks and dancing. All those conversations we can never have. There were so many things I wanted to share with her. Trips abroad, being each other's bridesmaids, meeting her babies and being an auntie, growing old together and see who got the most wrinkles. We weren't even halfway through our journey and you took it all away. I feel like I live in a make-believe world, as if nothing is real. I have to pretend because the thought of not having Sarah forever is too hard to bear. A lifetime now seems a very long time. I should never have to write a new eulogy for or bury my little sister. There is no punishment you could receive that will ever compare to the pain you have caused us. We can never get Sarah back. The last moments of Sarah's life play on my mind constantly. I'm so disgusted and appalled. It terrifies me that you have such disregard for a person's life. You have taken from me the most precious person, and I can never get her back. That was from her mother, father, and sister. I don't know if you could hear it as I was trying to read it, but it really gets to you. The fact that she was alone, and the last person she saw was her killer. Not someone who loved her. Knowing she was going to die, and it wasn't someone who loved her, caring for her. It was someone who had no, what's the word I'm looking for? Can't think. Who had no feelings for her. Right? Now, in this report, if I can find it, I think I'd have to go through it and mark it up. But there's certain things in here. Alright, let's just zoom it up a bit. But there is something here. I did post it on my X account, but what I'll do, I'll find it. I've got it on screenshot, so I've now got a second X account. Protecting our children. Where anything to do with the children and protecting our children and our women. I'm looking at the failings of the police departments all over the UK. I'm looking at the failings of the government the failings of child protection, the failings of social services, everyone. And at the moment, as you can tell, I'm looking at the police. And to be honest with you, I've lost all trust in police. I'm not saying they don't do a great job. They do. They work flipping hard. But I think a lot of people have lost that little bit of trust in them because of cases like this. And he won't be the first, and he won't be the last, I should say. He won't be the last. There'll be others. There'll be others out there who just haven't been caught yet. So that's why I say, be wary, young girls and women on your own. Do not get into a police car on your own. Make sure there's a commander, a supervisor, someone else above them there. Right? Because they can make up laws. They can make up any law they want to if it means getting you in a car. Use jaywalking. That is a law. Where you just walk across the road and you're not looking where you're going. That's jaywalking. But they use that a lot more in the USA, I think, than they do in the UK. Right? But they can make up any rule they want. And I believe he used the COVID-19. So, that was very hard to read, that was, with my own father. And I'm going to leave it at this one at the moment because this report is so long. It is actually 361 pages. Right, well, I'll see if I can pull up screenshots. No. Be my downloads. I'll have to find the screenshots. And I'll show them on my X account for protecting our children. The link for that will be in the description. Please come along and join me on my X account, as well as joining and subscribing to this page, my second YouTube account. This is an account just for anything to do with protecting our children and our women. And even our boys. Because boys can get exploited as well. Criminality, exploitation. You know what I mean? They exploit them by getting them involved in criminal things. So then they think, well, you won't tell on us now, because if you tell on us, you're going to go down as well. Right? So there's all that to look at. But the fact that the police didn't check these, a lot of the crimes come in after he got arrested, when they're seeing his picture on the news or in the papers. Right? And I was going, that's the guy who accosted me. That's the guy who flashed me. You know what I mean? But the fact that they had the car, the registration, everything, they knew who it was. And Kent police did nothing. That would have took him. He should never have been in the firearms department. No way on this earth should he have been there. So the vetting has to be. And I look at this one. Something the Prime Minister said when he was when he was an attorney, right? when they're looking at the Jimmy Savile case, he said because of him being like a celebrity, we have to hold it. The evidence has to be a lot higher, right? Which I think is loads of right, and I think the police need to be held to a higher standard. They need to have the background checks done, the money. Are they in debt to anyone apart from owning a mortgage, maybe? But that's took out your wages. Look into their money, what they're buying. Look into the bank accounts. What are they spending the money on? Right? Look into his life before he applied to become a police officer. Look into it all. There should be some sort of network thing, a computer for the police, where if anyone applies for one job in Kent but gets told no, but then applies for another job in the police force in a different department in Kent or in a different county, they can look up and go, oh, so you applied for special constable and you got denied that. You know what I mean? Just so they can see what people are up to. Because it's too easy. I remember years and years and years and years ago, I was about I think I was about 18. My youngest sister, was coming up to 16. Yeah, she'd be leaving school. And she thought, and this is true, she wanted to be going to the police. So every morning, she went out running. She'd go out jogging every morning to get her health built up and all this lot, yeah? Then one day she's sitting there and it come up on the news that the police, Metropolitan Police, were sending out vans, right, to encourage a certain minority group of people to join the police. Without having all the health checks and all this lot done, the fitness tests. And my sister's turned around and said, I'm doing all this to get into the police before I even sign up for the police. But they can just walk up and sign a piece of paper and they're in. She said, feck that. And she dropped the whole idea because of that. So, but yeah, my sister was looking at going in the police. I think I've got a niece who's in the police. Right? I know I've got a niece, but I'm not sure if she's... I heard she was in the police, put it that way. I don't see them that often. I haven't seen them in years. Last time I seen them was in 2019, and I didn't say 2 books to them. Right? And they never said hello to me, so I don't care. But we will look into this. I will mark it up, go through it again, and mark up the pages I want so we can look at it, okay? Because there's certain parts of this I think are interesting to read about Wayne Couzens. It won't be tomorrow night now because I'm looking at, I think it's Rotherham tomorrow, or Rochdale, one of them two tomorrow. So I'll be live tomorrow night, same time, same place. So thank you. If you're watching on replay, thank you for watching to the end. I really do appreciate it. Before we go, I forgot this when it shows. This should be played at the beginning. Alright. So I'd just like to say thank you to everyone for watching. leave me your comments. What do you think about what do you think about the police force and how they do you think the police force have changed? Do you think they've, since this report's come out, do you think they've changed anything? I think the police have got a lot more woke. Right? They won't. I just think the police don't want to be seen as being racist. Right now. That has to change. That attitude has to change. When you're in the police, there's no racist. If someone's committed a crime, be it pink, blue, yellow, polka dot, black and white, whatever, they've committed a crime, they get arrested. So I think all that wokeness in the police has to stop. And I think they need to start being police men again, police women again. Start being out there and doing the stop and searches. Right? Several times my son had been stopped and searched when he was younger, when he was walking back with his friends. Because there's like 3 or 4 of them. They would get stopped and searched. But they didn't mind. Fine, stop and search us, we've got nothing to hide. If you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to worry about. So I think the police need to stop all this wokeness, stop worrying about being racist, and do the job. Right? I think the vetting to get in the police has to be a lot stricter, a lot harder, a lot higher. Like I said, we are looking at the police at the moment, so I will come back to this Angiolini report. I will come back to that. But I wanted to show you just those three statements that the parents have made. Because we're talking about their daughter and what happened to her and how viral that piece of issues. So, thank you for being here again, everyone. I really do appreciate you all being here. Until next time, good night and stay safe.